Hello and welcome to Finding Genius. My name is Kyle O'Brien. Today we have Mike Charalambous. I'm pronouncing that in the anglicized version.
Nailed it.
He's the CEO and founder of Threedium, a 3D e-commerce platform. So we'll touch on that a little bit later. Mike, thanks for joining today. I'm really excited to have you on the series.
Yeah, super excited as well, and thank you for absolutely nailing my surname and the name of our company. You're already accomplished a lot during this call.
We can end the interview here. So we spoke the other day, and the first thing that we talked about was our personal backgrounds. And you mentioned you're from Cyprus. You're a Cypriot. I saw online that you went to, I think, an English-speaking high school, and then you went to French university. And now you live in London. So, as another kind of multicultural kid, I wanted to get your take on what your experience was like growing up in Cyprus. How did you get introduced to internet culture and startups and the entrepreneur ecosystem in Europe? And what has your experience been like across multiple regions?
Yeah, I mean, it's not usual or typical to see people from Cyprus being able to prosper in the tech side of things because, coming from a secluded island in the middle of the Mediterranean, everybody cares more about tax havens and tourism, right? And
right.
Food, which partially I did have experience around the food industry and entertainment when I first started my professional career. But, all in all, I was always a bit of a techie. I was always the guy that I was going around with the newest Nokia phones. Remember those 3620 and 9210 and all those things?
Were you playing Snake on those
playing snakes and all these things. I always felt like the record in the group of friends. And believe it or not, I was already in the Metaverse since the age of 13 or 14 when we were playing Counter-Strike and with the friends, right? Because if you think about it, that was the Metaverse, right? You would go around, you were shooting people, but you were making friends while doing that as well.
Right.
It was always kind of natural for me to be surrounded and to have this kind of stimuli when it comes to technology and gaming. I'm super Mediterranean, but I received most of my education at English school, where it was basically everything was taught primarily using the official British guidelines of education. Then, because I did my A levels and what have you, I was able to go to London, and I did my first degree in CAS Business School in London. Then I did my master's in ESCP, and of course that was my exposure in France. And I did that also. It was a joint course, so I split half of my time in Chicago and also in Paris. So that was good. Being an islander and having the opportunity to escape and see, that there's beyond the Mediterranean waves, you start spreading your wings and you start synthesizing all these different opportunities that you can have, and that you feel like the world becomes your oyster, but you truly do, because you were not initially exposed to something like that, so your appetite and excitement for the world is 10 times bigger. And ultimately, my excitement about technology and everything landed me my first job in Nokia. And I was part of the Nokia team scouting for different hardware and software solutions as they were building the Lumia phones. I'm not sure if you guys remember the Lumia phones. They're not that long ago.
Yeah.
But as we're in the process of building them and we're proud about what we're building, iPhones came to life. So it was a great way to see how giants can fall overnight.
Right.
And as Nokia was, a sinking ship, I felt it was a good opportunity for me to basically try my luck elsewhere. And believe it or not, I ended up in finance in Moody's. I was a risk analyst, actually.
Okay.
And after learning how to swear in 7 different languages, having to downgrade different bonds and economies, mainly Russia, Portugal, Spain, it was very daunting. So I felt that was really not something I wanted to associate myself with, and I didn't want to do this for the rest of my career. So I went back into the tech world, but through the agency side this time, and I joined WPP and Wonderman, and we were part of the brand strategy teams, basically guiding different consumer electronic brands into their new product launches across different markets. And as we were grinding in that space, and as we were basically doing all sorts of different executions and activations and amassing different data from different markets, we came to the realization that users were becoming even more immune to digital advertising, social media, banner blindness. Mind you, this was back in 2016. So as a side gig, I started this small company, which we created like a SaaS platform, allowing brands to be able to build interactive ad banners, to make the whole banner industry a bit more enticing and exciting and perhaps more effective. And as we were trying to optimize the product, as we were looking to find ways as to what more you can input within banners to make them sassy and interesting and eye-catching, we came across Dushan, who at the time was very prolific in 3D. He came across this algorithm that was able to compress heavy 3D files into low poly 3D files, which maintained the same kind of the same kind of photorealism, and we started playing around with the idea of putting 3D on the web, mainly through banners, and we nailed it actually, because we managed to convince BMW to try the first ever 3D banner ad, and they absolutely smashed it. So I remember they launched it in a few publishers, and people can go and swirl the BMW, and they could change colors and open and close the doors, everything through a banner ad. And I remember they had something like 200% increase on their click-through rates from that banner, and they booked something like 73 test drives within the 2 days that the banner ad was live on a few publishers. So that for us was a awakening call that we were sitting on something bigger than what we initially intended, and that's how we started, exploring the whole idea of getting 3D and AR across the web, democratizing for any brand, any agency, any small to medium company, and that's how Threedium was formed, basically.
Very cool. So was the original product, the side project that you did for BMW there, did that translate directly into Threedium, or was that the inspiration for building what would become the company?
Yeah, it was a bit of both. So basically, we had created already this SaaS kind of platform that would allow you to take specific templates and just embed inside gamified activations or some cool 3D aspects. And then basically we took the source code of that platform with what was able to do at a low code level, and we connected it with all the 3D features and aspects that Dushan and the team were creating at their time with their own 3D IP. So we tied everything together, we glued everything together, and that's how we had the Threedium platform coming to life. Of course, it wasn't as simple and as romantic as it sounds, because at the time I was an owner of Threedium and Dushan of Frenzy, and Dushan was owner of Frenzy's, this side agency, the side platform that we did.
Right.
And Dushan had Threedium, but Threedium was building this compression around 3D objects. And then we had to put our egos aside and find the ways to merge and find the ways in which IP will tie in nicely and have an equal value.
Right.
It took us a couple of months, but I remember we agreed everything over beers and nachos, and that's always a great way to resolve any kind of gray areas.
Well, any startup founders listening you can take that recommendation, beer and nachos, the way to incorporate.
Exactly.
Well,
Solves every problem.
Let's talk a little bit about like the value proposition behind Threedium. So that initial seed of an idea, the experiment with BMW, that was kind of a clear moment where you understood that there was value to unlock. How do you pitch Threedium today? How has the platform evolved? What would be a customer experience perhaps in the Threedium platform?
Yeah. So our main mission when we started was how to democratize 3D and AR for commerce. And this remains as the key foundation, the key pillar in everything that we do. So all the decisions we do around product on the roadmap, but also the kind of R&D that we're working on 6 months ahead of time from today, it's always to ensure that we can provide an end-to-end engine that allows everybody basically to utilize 3D and AR commerce and immersive solutions across any channel. Now, when we started the company in 2017, there was nowhere to be seen the whole notion of interconnected worlds and a parallel digital universe, because people couldn't really associate with that, but also the technology was not quite there yet for people to be able to embrace and place ownership on digital goods.
Right.
So when we started the company, it was mainly around how to optimize product displays on e-commerce and how to enhance the e-commerce experience for the brands and the users. Now, with the introduction of blockchains into our life, with the introduction of immersive worlds, which we now tend to name as Metaverse worlds, and with this massive hype that is being built up around the Metaverse and the promise that the Metaverse can bring to the world, we started to educate the brands about what this means and how they can be utilizing it through their existing immersive commerce solutions and the 3D files that they own. Because this whole new internet that is being built, its key component, the key ingredient to build it is 3D. So we found ourselves in this very unique position in the market where we had all these global tier 1 brands like Farfetch, like Fendi, Bulgari, Mercedes, Diageo, Samsung, and what have you, that they were already using the engine to digitalize and visualize their products in 3D and AR, but also create all sorts of different 3D and AR configurators and 3D and AR product explorers and 3D ads, and publish them across their digital and e-commerce channels, but also through omni-channel and physical channels.
Yeah.
And we had this amazing opportunity to be the first to guide them and introduce them as to how they could use these assets into the Metaverse. So because they were already trusting us, seeing the results and the beautiful work that was done on their e-commerce sites using our technology, it was a no-brainer for them to come to us and trust us as we were stepping them into the Metaverse.
Yeah.
So right now in 2022, we are now acting as a Web 2.5 basically platform, and we're sitting right in the intersection of their digital transformation. So all the big brands are using our end-to-end engine to be able to digitalize their products at scale, create all these powerful, engaging e-commerce immersive solutions, but also optimize their assets so that they can make them Metaverse ready and distribute them across all the different Metaverse worlds. And what we're trying to develop and allow the brands to do is to actually use our platform as a portal that navigates them between Web 2 and Web 3. So at any time, with zero modeling, zero coding, zero Web 3 knowledge, the brands can utilize their experiences and their assets through the platform to either sell them directly to consumers on their existing e-commerce and digital advertising and physical channels. But at any point, they can just take them and deploy them within Decentraland and Sandbox and different Unreal Engine built worlds to start blending these physical to digital experiences and maintaining this consistency. And this is how we're now slowly evolving and developing with them this notion of connected commerce, or meta commerce, if you like.
Gotcha. I want to touch more on the bridge between Web 2 and Web 3. I think that's like a critical pivot for you guys, and you're kind of in the right place in the right time with the right expertise and the existing customer base, which is an amazing place to be in 2022. But before we do that, can we talk more about just the 3D engine itself, what the experience would be? So let's say I'm like a CMO at Bulgari or something in my fantasy world. What is the experience like if I were to onboard under the Threedium platform? I see it kind of as a mix of like some sort of digital experience provider plus a product inventory management and some sort of like, I don't know, designer asset management platform, all kind of bundled into one. And then once you've kind of designed these 3D files, I suppose you call them, distributing them out into your pipeline for advertisements for your website. How does it work? Like, walk me through that process.
So we've got three types of clients. Ones are basically the Shopifys and the Wix and the WooCommerce shops of the world, which they have limited budget, limited 3D modeling background, limited tech capabilities, and they can come onto our platform. They can upload a few pictures and images of their products. Our team are going to turn them into 3D and AR so that they have them populated into the platform. And then those guys can go into the platform, create their own 3D and AR viewers or configurators, and just publish them. And they will be receiving some API scripts or iframes or URL links. And based on how they want to integrate on their site, they just take the different distribution channels and embed them onto their site. And that is as basic as it gets. Nobody gets to talk to us. It's a very ABC kind of process. And even if they don't want to pay for asset creation and they don't want to submit images to turn into 3D objects, they can just use a standard photogrammetry process or use our 3D scanner apps, where basically they can just take 20 seconds videos of their products or take anywhere between 20 to 30 images per product, upload them onto our server, and then the server automatically turns them into 3D assets, which they can use. It's not a super amazing, hyper photorealistic, solution, but it's a very cost-effective solution. So we see a lot of those budget-constrained users tend to prefer that.
It's kind of the self-service tier.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Then we've got some brands like, I don't know, let's say Ralph Lauren or Burberry, that they're very avid in 3D. They have an army of 3D modelers in their creative studios and what have you. They don't really need someone to create 3D models for them, but they need someone to compress the 3D models for them so that they can then create the 3D viewers, the configurators, and any other immersive solution that they feel that they want to use across their commercial channels. And therefore, the platform allows them to take all those 3D models that they have in bulk, upload them into the system. The system runs a compression around those 3D models, and then whatever you input, you get to have a one-to-one output, but much more compressed. And then you have the assets ready again to go and create your solutions and publish them at scale. And the platform also allows them to integrate across any content management system that they have, or any kind of other asset management library that they have, where they want to embed their solutions in and distribute them together, or any other syndication network that they operate upon. And those clients, in case they don't have any 3D modeling background, because you also have a lot of luxury brands, a lot of jewelry brands, a lot of automotive brands, that they have this appetite of elevating their e-commerce and becoming more immersive, but they just don't have the stamina, or they're not in the size of a team that they can have their own 3D modeling team in studios, which they come to us. They drop all the images of their products into our platform, where our modelers turn everything into 3D and AR, and then they use the same workflows to create the different immersive solutions and publish them. And then we have the last type of client or user, if you like, which is a much more niche kind of audience. And those are the marketplaces and the e-commerce platforms of the world, namely some like GoDaddy or New Order or even Etsy, which they can take our scalable APIs, our webhooks from the platform, connect them into their backend, and then they can take our entire engine, put it into their backend, and allow their users to do whatever they would have done in the Threedium platform, but within their ecosystems.
Right. You're like the Stripe of 3D rendering or something.
Of 3D commerce solutions in a way.
Yeah.
And basically this is how the platform works. It caters these three different levels of users.
Okay. When I think of the use cases, I mean, the obvious one is, you go to Farfetch, for example, on their site, and you're exploring some of the clothing or the shoes, and you get a really nice 3D model of the product. You can observe it. That probably increases conversion rates. It's pretty obvious business case there. When you move into the augmented reality space, and then we'll go a step further in just a minute around NFTs and kind of metaverse clothing. What are the use cases there? What are you witnessing among some of the preeminent brands that are experimenting in the AR and metaverse worlds?
Look, the beautiful thing about AR is that it can be whatever you want it to be, and both 3D and AR are very important metaverse tools. We see a lot of brands using this type of technologies in so many different ways, even in ways we never initially thought that they had an application. And it's fascinating because you can use AR to eliminate waste and enhance the prototyping and sampling workflows of the brands, so they don't have to constantly ship physical products back and forth, but also they can be testing all sorts of different textures, and they can see the products in front of them in AR and understand the size and give feedback and what have you, and that's perfect. But you can also use it on a marketing perspective so that you can create different direct to consumer experiences to allow the users to see the product, understand again the size, experience it in the comfort of their own homes, and whatever augmented reality can do for the customer facing aspects. And then you also have the other brands that are using AR for educational purposes, or even to be able to to tell a story that it's not otherwise easy to be told. And we also see brands using AR for new product launches so that they can eliminate all the bells and whistles of having to distribute physically the product everywhere for people to test it and see it. It really helps a lot on the logistics and the sustainability side of things again. And then AR is also a key component when it comes to blurring the lines between physical and digital. And as the world is becoming, more acquainted with their second life, having a digital identity, browsing around and voyaging in different metaverse worlds and encountering different digital products, AR can allow you to basically experience the product in its full autonomy. So if, let's say, I'm Balenciaga, and I have these beautiful, amazing sweatshirts or bags, right, that they're so good in real life, and really what distinguishes them is the levels of quality. But I'm doing a 360 new product launch campaign in the metaverse, and I've got different avatars going around and exploring my Balenciaga products in the metaverse.
Yeah.
Most of the metaverse worlds today are extremely low poly, low fidelity, so it doesn't allow the brands to showcase those intrinsic details that are actually important to define the purchase intention of the user. And by attaching an element of AR executions next to those products that you're interacting with them in the metaverse, and you can take your phone, let's say, and scan a QR code and see the product coming out of the screen so you can explore it in real life and then click to purchase it through the metaverse. That's a fantastic way of bridging the gap between the real and the physical world and getting users or avatars, if you like, to convert and buy the product digitally, but receive it physically as well.
Sure.
And vice versa. So it's really a key component when it comes to creating these portals between Web 2 and Web 3.
Yeah. Well, I hadn't thought about it before, but your mention of the environmental impact and the reduction in logistics. When Balenciaga releases a new, I don't know, handbag or something, I'm sure there's a ton of logistics of physically creating them based on expected demand, shipping them out, hosting events worldwide. The amount of carbon emissions associated with that are probably pretty steep. So it's pretty fascinating that there's this opportunity to curb emissions through a path that I guess I had never really considered before.
Yeah, look, it's not going to save the world, but it's definitely a step towards the right direction for a lot of brands, not just in fashion, but also in consumer goods, consumer electronics, even in the automotive industry, to really be able to meet their sustainability quotas and avoid unnecessary shipping of products. That doesn't really matter if they ship them or not, because at the end of the day, they're just samples and you're just testing them.
Yeah.
To really use immersive tools to have the same kind of efficient prototyping process.
Right. Well, it brings us back to the bridge between Web 2.0, Web 3, and you're sitting at the intersection at Web 2.5, if you'd like to call it that. I'm actually looking at the Meta-commerce engine. I saw a pitch deck or some sort of deck you had floating around on the internet that I'll put in the show notes. But talk about how a customer of Threedium can upload and render those CAD images. You can create the 3D models, and then it kind of diversifies into two different sections or two different a split path, one towards Web 2 and one towards Web 3, which we spoke about earlier. And I was at Paris Blockchain Week earlier, yesterday and the day before, and you get very technical in the conversations there. It's a lot of nerding out around protocols and custody and whatever, which is great, and it's really cool, and it's important that there's a space for that. But there's the other part of the internet, namely on Twitter, advocates for Web 3 that discuss what is it like to onboard the next 100 million people into Web 3, because it's still a large minority of people that are actively involved. And I was having a conversation with a friend of mine named Paula from Speed Invest, and she gave me this analogy about a vending machine. People like to go to a vending machine and order the snack they want. They couldn't give a shit about the mechanics on the back end. And that really applies kind of in this blockchain, crypto, metaverse kind of world, which is there's going to be a big majority of the people that just don't really care about the protocols. They don't care about the cryptography. They want something that just works, And the way I see your kind of positioning is that this is something where it could just ultimately work from the get-go. It's not something that requires a big leap of faith or some sort of technical know-how. I'm looking, I'm a CMO at a company that's already working with you. I understand that I have a 3D model that I'm putting on my website, and now you're offering them the opportunity to just double down on that and mint it as an NFT or associate it with this blockchain or another. So
exactly.
Can you tell me a little bit about what you're hearing from CEOs or CMOs that you're working with? Why are they excited about this, and how do you plan to roll out the kind of it just works functionality?
First of all, I've never heard that example before with a vending machine, and I think I'm going to be using it as well. It's spot on. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Golden. But it's the same. So the same kind of cognitive biases that users will have and restricts them from going in volumes in this new internet. Still, is because of that. There's a lot of gray areas which they need to do. I need to download this, and I need to own that, and I need to convert that to be able to do that. So if you're very agnostic of the space, all these things are very easy. And once you get through the initial hurdle of installing all the necessary equipment you need, it's very easy process thereafter. But for people that they don't know and they're a bit bored of going in and understanding, it seems a bit tedious. Same applies for the brands, right? Those brands are like in their comfort zone. They know e-commerce. They finally get it. They now optimize their e-commerce pages. They now found ways to have consistency between their e-commerce and their real shops. And all of a sudden you have these crazy dudes that come here and tell you, oh, Web3, the new internet, it's going to change the game. You guys, if you're not there, you're losing market share. And they're like, what the heck is happening, right? So for them having to all of a sudden leave their comfort zone to have to educate themselves about what the heck Ethereum is, what is layer 1, what is layer 2, what are the protocols, why do I need to mint stuff, what is minting? I've never heard this word before. I thought it was something different. What is decentralized? Why do people go into something so low poly? And why do people care about a sandbox, which is a voxelated thing that it was a thing 20 years ago? All these things are genuine questions that the brands have, and they don't understand what is happening. They actually see brands like us, but all the Web3 guys, as very scary brands, because they understand that we are important and we're going to continue being important, and they understand that they need to use us. But it bothers them that they need to have this black box sitting in their office, and they're just afraid to open it because they don't know what's going to come out of that, you know? So ultimately for them, it all boils down to the vending machine example you gave. If people, brands, Web3 companies can give them something that they don't need to worry too much about, they don't need to massively educate themselves, but things miraculously happen. And then all of a sudden they can now play in those two different worlds seamlessly, and they can show to their bosses that, everything works and we have a Web3 strategy in place and we're optimizing it. And by the way, we didn't have to hire anyone externally to do that. Then happy days, This is mainly how we see brands reacting right now. We then have different CMOs and different innovation managers and officers as well, which they're even more fascinated because they can see the true potential. They can see how far this can stretch and how they can be doing things that otherwise seemed impossible or very expensive to do in real life. And those are the guys that typically tend to get more excited. And those are the guys that typically become the internal champions for us, that they push all those departments to bring them to the level that they have to be, to understand that this is important, and therefore they have to devote time and effort to optimize them. And surprisingly, we saw luxury being the first industry to embrace it fully, and we're seeing them investing a lot of money, time, and training to bring a lot of their C-level people and leadership team to a position that they understand the potential of the metaverse. And usually luxuries are the industries that, they tend to follow, maybe consumer electronic industries or maybe whatever automotive industry does. But this time around, it was luxury first and everybody else follows, which was an interesting example to see. I guess maybe because it was easier to bridge the gap between direct to consumers and direct to avatars, because digital ownership of wearables and physical ownership of wearables is just much easier to tie in, and you can create a much faster utility both in terms of real life and digital life. And anyway, what is happening basically is that we're building more elevated digital identities of ourselves. So the first thing that you want to do to your digital identity is to dress it, to give it some sort of cool vibes, because that's what's going to identify you in the next months or years to come. That's the avatar you're going to be using to build your presence into these worlds, into the new Web3. So I guess that's why consumers were more readily receptive to spend on digital clothing.
Yeah.
Instead of digital Corvettes or,
Right. Right. Well, you mentioned the term digital transformation earlier, and it feels right now like we're in this kind of Wild West phase. But I spent several years at Salesforce in the early 2010s, and I think they may have kind of coined that term, going from server-based CRM to cloud-based. And it feels like we're in a similar moment now. Obviously, a slightly different vertical, but you're kind of ushering in this digital transformation. You're providing a path forward. It's always easier said than done, and when you say digital transformation, it can feel fairly abstract. So if you don't have a practical example or application to explain, it can be kind of difficult. And you see, I don't know, like a fashion show on in Fortnite or a concert in Fortnite. You're like, okay, that looks cool, but like, how exactly does this apply to me? I found it interesting. I was looking around on some of your social profiles. You've done a couple of personal experiments. One of them was minting your own NFT, which I think gave people access to your calendar for one-on-ones. And then you were in a Metaverse fashion show wearing, I think it was DKNY's, new, I don't know what it was, a suit or something along those lines. So, you talk the talk, but you walk the walk. You're actually experimenting in this world. So, can you kind of explain to me your thought process behind engaging in these activities and what you learned from doing it personally?
Yeah, I mean, look, I was in the space since forever, since we didn't even know that there was a name about it, the Metaverse, right? And I was also I don't want to say one of the first, but I started investing in crypto and blockchain since 2014. I did purchase Bitcoin when it was around $150, and yes, I did sell it when it was at $400. And yes, I did decide to buy it back when it was at 14,000, and then sell it when it crashed to 12,000.
Yeah.
I've been through this thick and thin, and I was also there when NFT collections came to be, and we spent $300 buying, mutant apes and all this kind of stuff. You just had to do it, because being in this space, if you don't understand the all the different aspects of it, if you're not grinding there along to get the market beats, to understand why other people in the same position as you, other consumers, exhibit this kind of new consumer behaviors, then how can you go and build something that allow the brands to do it at scale? And that was always our notch on our culture and what we cultivated internally with the Threedium leadership team since day one. All of us are proper degenerates. We've been learning and testing and losing money and making money in the space to understand. But ultimately, those are great experiences. It's like doing an MBA in Web3. It costs us the same money, but without being in a proper university.
You get a profile picture as opposed to a physical degree. But
exactly. All these are important things, and I think this is what defines a Web3 specialist or a company that understands how to function in the Web3 and really get the brands to trust them as you take them into this journey, into this new internet, versus everybody else that just goes on LinkedIn and puts, under their title, Web3 specialist, Metaverse specialist, NFT specialist. And like 6 months ago, they were digital marketeers, or they were, You just don't get to claim that easily, because but unfortunately we do have that breed of people, and unfortunately they're really messing up the market, because they're giving all sorts of wrong impressions and guidelines to brands, and brands are spending a lot of money to these type of people because they don't know, and they have a massive FOMO, and they need someone to show that they brought on board to navigate them. That someone obviously might never even purchase the NFTs, might never got racked, might never lost money on blockchain transactions, might never minted anything in their lives. They're just capitalizing on the hype. And then you see all sorts of different shitty executions from the brands that bring zero value to them. For instance, like Heineken the other day, they launched a digital beer, and they were promoting it on LinkedIn. Oh, we have our first digital beer. Guys, this is not it, you know? You don't just do a voxelated beer and you say you're into the metaverse. Yes. You're missing the point, and it's far beyond that. What is critical for the brands to understand, and they cannot understand it if people that are in the space do not explain it to them, is that every minute that they do not invest in building a robust 6-month and 12-month strategy to understand how the metaverse and the Web3 space works, they're losing market share every minute, because every minute a new baby is born. And the new babies now are, the first thing that they encounter are iPads and iPhones and Robloxes and Fortnites. And they already, by the age of 5, they're spending money to buy tokens, to buy digital products, to enhance their characters. And these guys, 30 years later, they're going to be the ones that they have the purchasing powers, and they make the decisions and they drive consumer demand. These guys are going to have a complete different notion of how to evaluate digital ownership, physical ownership, pricing, engagement with brands. They're going to love brands that they've been with them since the beginning, and they were offering them all these kind of rewards and values since they were 5, right? And it's not just about publishing a lame, voxelated can and say, I'm now in the metaverse. They're missing the point. And they probably spend at least 100,000 to onboard a Web3 or metaverse specialist to come in and come up with this idea, and another 20,000 for their metaverse or their agency to create it, and another 30 or 50,000 just to promote it, And they achieved nothing. They lost so much money and so much time, and they haven't even scratched the surface. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, to that end, I kind of want to close out on a state of the union for crypto, metaverse, NFTs. The Heineken example you gave is a really good one, where there's a lot of distrust with brands who are jumping on a trend and minting a beer NFT for the sake of doing it. But like you said, there's a disconnect there. It doesn't quite translate. So when I think about NFTs in the future, there's a couple of easy examples that come to mind, like points that you get on your credit card, or loyalty programs, or there's a lot of DAOs now experimenting with access to physical parties based on your token holdings. And so, it feels like we've hit a critical mass. It's no longer 2013 where Bitcoin is kind of this niche thing. We've gone through a couple of hype cycles. We've got formalized conferences. We have plenty of exchanges. Mt. Gox is in the past, and now people are buying from credible kind of financial institutions or quasi-financial institutions.
Quasi is more appropriate.
Yeah. So, what is the state of the union today for crypto, for NFTs, and what can we expect in the next, 5 to 10 years?
Look, I am very biased because I'm a huge ambassador of tokenomics, and I truly believe that eventually everything will be tokenized in every form and way, in the way we transact, in the way that we get paid, in the way we interact with different brands. NFTs and metaverse don't necessarily need to go together. NFTs, I see them more as a kind of a CRM, as you mentioned. It's more of that binding contractual relationship between a customer and a brand that can increase in perpetuity in terms of values and rewards. And then the metaverse worlds are just the means to an end, where basically you have this additional economy that you provide additional rewards to your customers, whether they're customers of yours as an avatar, or whether they're customers of yours as a physical human being, or both. So you've got the NFTs, you use them as a CRM, you use them as utility to build upon, to reward people because they're holders, because they show their dedication. They're also being internal champions, and they go around and they push the value creation of the brand in all these different channels. And then you've got the physical world where you can tie these utilities and rewards with, but you also have the metaverse where you can tie these utilities. And for sure, we're going to be seeing new forms of KPIs coming up, new forms of rewardings coming in. So instead of giving them loyalty points. You might reward them on a where to earn kind of way. So the more you're wearing your ASICS t-shirt or hoodie, voyaging in Decentraland and Sandbox, the more you get paid by the brand. The more you jump around and you run and you do activities and you interact with different games in different metaverse worlds, the more you get rewarded. The more followers you have, or the more avatars that cross paths to you, and because you're a creator and you build a solid, image and kind of fame or legacy in the space because you're doing good things and people are following you because you're doing good things and you're being a solid creator in the space, you can be rewarded for that,
Yep.
So we will see also the notion of influencers changing, the way in which brands perceive an influencer and how they reward influencers is going to change as well. And then blockchain, I think that is something that it's not necessarily, cryptos, sorry, not blockchain. Cryptos are not necessarily affecting whatever NFTs and Metaverse is doing with the brands in this new 3D internet world that is being built. But for sure, there are going to be some prevailing cryptocurrencies like Ethereum, like Bitcoin, potentially Polygon or Polkadot, that are going to be the pillars in which all these kind of experiences and tokens are going to be built upon, and that they're going to bring a universal pricing level to all the products worldwide. This is a long-term play, of course, but it's going to happen.
Yeah.
All of the brands are going to have their own tokens so that they can reward, and there's going to be probably one token that unifies everything together so that they can function in tandem, basically.
Wow. I mean, the space is fascinating, and it seems to be changing every day. So I really appreciate you giving us your insight from your vantage point over in the 3D world. I think we'll close on that. I really appreciate your time. This was a lot of fun. It was good to speak with you again, and I look forward to keeping tabs on Threedium and your foray into the metaverse. Absolutely.
We're going to have a lot of interesting things coming up, so keep a close eye.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks again, Mike, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.
All right.
Bye.
Okay, I am closing out the